Okay, looks like we should be live. Welcome to Developing Your Spiritual Gifts, Part 3. Just gonna open up this slideshow here. There we go. Okay, so last week we talked about discernment, and we were looking at Gigi Young's videos as a reference. That's where I got a lot of the information about the claircognizance, the different psychic abilities. They're listed in the part 1 of developing your spiritual gifts. So last time we talked mostly on, what to be careful, what to look out for. Not all information is correct, valuable, and relevant for the present. So there is this element of needing to determine the quality of information and where it comes from. How do you know you're not receiving information from the false light and lower astral? So we've got this variation in the energy and the level of consciousness that we have. And we want to stabilize that level of energy, like the amount of chi or prana in your body, and increasingly elevate that and stabilize that level of energy. It's important to understand how your energy affects your level of consciousness. So if you're really down, have a lot of negative energy, you're really in the mind and ego, that will affect your consciousness, and we can see this effect where lower states of consciousness can be brought on by stress and other factors. Now, this is really important because your state of consciousness and brain coherence, and also we'll bring up coherence later, that affects the type and quality of information that you connect to. So you can attach to streams of consciousness just like attaching to thoughts and emotions, and you need to recognize and differentiate what is yours and what is not yours. It takes practice to learn what your higher vibrational frequencies feel like compared to your lower vibrational frequencies, and develop awareness of the condition of your consciousness at that moment. So there is a lot of work that you can do here, and a lot of things that will affect the kind of experiences you have as you explore your spiritual gifts. It's important to become an objective observer, and the information that you get, you interpret it because it comes in higher frequencies, and it doesn't come like straight out of the gate in terms of a way that's easily explainable or easy to understand. So a lot of people who have developed their spiritual gifts and work as psychics, they've developed the skills of learning how to translate that information. Ego can distort this translation of information. So on the same topic of what we talked about last week, Erica Elmitz had a great video about exploring the spiritual world and developing your spiritual abilities and your level of consciousness through using psychedelics. And she was talking about the dangers of it. For Erica Elmitz's channel, you can go and look on her channel. She's got the part 1, and The part 2, which has the bulk of the information, is in her private group, which you can sign up for, and it's free, so you can access that information there. But she was talking about how the psychedelics, they act as an amplifier for you to connect to different kinds of energies that you would naturally without using the psychedelics. Everything we were talking about before, you can connect to information, spiritual information, astral realms. You can connect to that naturally without using psychedelics. But here's the thing, is that, you know, if you're not using psychedelics, you might be forced to develop some healing, develop this awareness in terms of your consciousness before you're able to access that information. Otherwise, you can go right into psychedelics without any prep work and then really start to see a lot of your shadow self. You can connect to really dark energy. You can get a really mixed bag and not be ready for it and not be prepared for it. You can start to connect to a whole bunch of energy and information and kind of get overwhelmed by it and really plugged into it without having that discernment that we talked about last week. So last week we talked about quarantining the information that you're getting, just holding it in this experimental phase where you're thinking about it, you're processing it, you're letting the information filter through your being, so you can develop your own judgments and evaluate it with discernment about whether how useful it is, how applicable it is to you, how relevant, how true it is. So she talked about this whole level of danger with using psychedelics, which I thought was really interesting and relevant to the discussion that we had last week. So I've got some more videos. I'm going to talk about a bit of Jeffrey Allen's course on duality. You can buy the course on Mindvalley. There was a free trial. I posted it last week that you could access. And I don't know if that free trial is, you can still get it, but it was a promotion for the Black Friday sale. Okay, so we've got the first video we're looking at is called The Role of Love and Fear in Psychic Development, and this is by Gigi Young. You need to have a very high level of consciousness integrated into your being to perceive 5D information. So lots of people talk about the 5D and accessing the 5D, and it's easy to talk about. It's not so easy to do it. So even if someone's saying like, oh, I'm in the 5D, I've got this 5D information, it might not necessarily be accurate to call it 5D if that person hasn't done the work on themselves to develop that kind of connection. So in order to develop the level of connection, to be able to integrate that level of consciousness into your being, that's accessed through love in the body and the heart. And this has been a struggle for me this week. Like, I've been feeling very depressed, been having a lot of really dark, negative energy that I've been dealing with. I did manage to get that video out that was talking about that, and even now, like, have a sore throat. So it's been definitely a tough week this week. I've been in that like low cycle of energy, like going through some challenging things. So I really haven't been vibrating at like that frequency of love this week, just been so challenged being in the mind and in the ego. That's okay. That's part of your growth, and like, Jeffrey Allen calls it a growth period, like where you're feeling really grumpy, irritated. These are symptoms of going through that growth period, clearing that old energy. So it just came up in a huge way for me this week. But I did get some insight about what was going on. So I really haven't developed the techniques that we've been discussing here a lot. I've been mostly developing my intuition through reading tarot. And so that's primarily been my method that I go to when I need some extra information. But I noticed the same themes. When I first started, it was really brutal because my negative thoughts would just find something negative to find in the cards. It would just draw out the worst possible meanings, like fear would come up about like, oh, this means this, and that would be like the automatic go-to thought in my mind about what it meant. So it was really challenging and tricky and just like a rough ride for the first bit while I was learning. But I did learn over time that I really have to shut off that negative part of the mind. And I really started to develop this idea where I thought, you know what, I don't care. Whatever negative thoughts come up, I'm not going to believe them. I'm just going to say, you know what, those are negative thoughts. I am going to consciously choose a positive message from whatever I'm seeing, because that's the thing in your life. You can always draw negative messages, you can always draw positive messages or beliefs or stories. Like you can always, you do have the power to choose. Whenever you're doing any kind of spiritual work or looking for answers, you've got to have the lid capped on that bottle of negativity. Like you got to cap it and say, no, that's not happening here. I'm not going to let my mind run off with a bunch of negative stories. So that's whether it's in your environment, stories about what's happening, or, you're trying to access some kind of spiritual information. So there's that aspect to it. There is the aspect of, like what kind of energy and what kind of state you're in. It makes a big difference. If you are in a frantic energy, desperate for answers, it's not going to go well. You're not going to be happy with what you get. You're going to be constantly questioning. So I've learned, like receive the information, take it. You don't like it, just drop it. Come back to it the next day, maybe when you're in a better state of mind. This is something that you want to have a space for it, a sacred space for it. Some people, they use the smudging. They'll use smudge with sage. I don't do that. They will use various other techniques, crystals. There's certain rituals that people do. And I believe I talked about this in a previous live stream, but I've dealt with really dark energy showing up in my life before when I was really interested I was very invested in Christianity, but I started being really interested in fighting the dark spiritual world, and it just became overwhelming because I developed a lot of fear around that. And I naturally just decided no, and I shut myself off from that energetically. So I do notice that I have almost innately created that level of spiritual protection for myself. And I was listening to some of the material for Jeffrey Allen's course Duality today, and I was realizing how much negativity is still present within me. And I thought, you know what? One thing I can do is just actually regularly go through that material on a daily basis. Just run the meditations, like not force myself to do them, but just run them, because just having something like that just reminds you about, oh, let's focus on this, let's not focus on this, and let's focus on this. And a lot of the stuff that he does, he uses like visualization techniques to help you in a really grounded, practical way, which I thought was really good. Okay, so I completely lost my train of thought. I guess maybe that train of thought is done now. So the body is in 3D, but can pull in high level information through alchemy with the frequency of love. And so Gigi Young called this the psychic alchemical process, and everyone has a different capacity for this, and you can increase your capacity. I think I can work on this a lot. I think I can work a lot on improving my capacity to hold love, because I keep getting distracted by negative thoughts. I think it's okay that, I'm purging all this like dark energy, which is like, these judgments and all of this, but I think I can do better. I find sometimes when I'm listening to meditations, part of it will trigger me, and I'm just like, and I've realized, it's not as if like that meditation is not good. It's good. It's just like that's triggering a limiting belief. It's triggering like some kind of stuck energy. And it's like, okay, I can just work through that. It's okay. It's not that this course is bad and I don't like it. And like, well, maybe, this personality that was developed to protect myself and shield myself, maybe that personality doesn't like it, because it's really kind of forcing me and pushing me. If we talk about divine neutrality, another way to think of divine neutrality is a space of being unbothered. Like that is a great way to think about it. Like not being able to be triggered, because if you can hold the space of divine neutrality, then like you're not going to be triggered into like all this negative stuff. And I've definitely felt that space of divine neutrality, but I haven't held it. I haven't held that frequency. So that's something I want to work on. So the greater the capacity for this psychic alchemical process, the more you can access timelines further removed from the earth. So I'll give you an example, like Gigi Young has talked about on her channel, her experiences where she's had visions of things happening on different planets, different timelines, and, information about, what do we say, like Lemurians, Venusians, I can't think of any of the other ones right now, but any of that kind of information, like the further removed it is from this timeline and the earth, like the more you kind of disconnect from where we are here. And you really need to have that, really be grounded in that love. She also mentioned that psychic abilities are built up through lifetimes, and you can be reinitiated into high levels of psychic abilities and continue to build on what you developed in past lives. I personally think this can be tricky because, you know, in our lives, for some people this happens and it just completely blindsides them because they're like, I'm living my life and now I'm getting like, what is happening? And they don't have the awareness or understanding of what is going on. And like, this is where we kind of connect into our mission and our purpose on Earth, but it really needs to happen in a healthy way and be integrated in a healthy way, which can be really hard if you are also healing stuff from past timelines and this lifetime as well. So it can be a slow process, and that's okay. Yeah, so we're talking about increasing your spiritual capacity. So that's your capacity to access, you know, these levels of consciousness where this information is available to you. And this depends on how much spiritual energy you can sustain in your being of that higher energy frequency without becoming irritated or distracted. This is what happens. And the irritated part, it sounds a little bit like, you know, that growth period that I talked about earlier that Jeffrey Allen mentioned. Like, the growth period is like that irritation and grumpiness where that lower density energy is leaving you. So that sounds a little bit like that, where, you know, that's part of the healing process. Getting distracted, yeah, that happens. You can feel this level of discomfort, almost like you ever had like this really intimate moment and it felt a little bit uncomfortable for you. Like, I knitted baby booties from one of my coworkers, and she received the present and she was crying, and it was such an emotionally intense moment, and I wasn't ready for that level of emotional intimacy. I felt really uncomfortable. So I can imagine what she's saying here might feel similar, like that level of intimacy where you feel like you're connecting to like the divine and your highest self. So like, that's a big level of intimacy. You're really seeing directly into yourself. You're discovering yourself, really. Like, we talked about the different energetic bodies, like this levels of your soul in a previous life. So you've got all these different bodies, like physical body, emotional body, mental body, etheric body, and it keeps going on and on and on. So, you know, if we're not connected to our soul, we're not connected to really a large part of who we are. I just imagine that what she's talking about is really like, you gotta, you know, even just healing, there's that level of intimacy with yourself where you're discovering yourself and you're accepting and allowing the different parts of yourself. And through this, you know, kind of work, you're expanding your identity into more than what it was before. Into more than what a lot of people around us are focused on. Just the body, and that's it. So, yeah, again, you can't be in fear or negative ego. Like, that gets to us. And this is because when we connect to that higher level energy within us, it pushes out fear, pain, trauma, and incoherence. So we'll talk about incoherence later. I got a definition for it. Oh, another thing I was going to mention that I felt that was similar to this idea was sometimes I listen to the light energy transmissions. I forget if that's the right, but I forget if that's the right name, but it's like, it sounds like clicking or kind of nonsense. sometimes I listen to those and I've like in the middle I've gotten like irritated and distracted and I stopped. I didn't make it the whole way through because it just felt uncomfortable. Of course, you know, like there's the potential for someone to be posing as the light and they're actually the dark. So you have to, and they're actually using that to try and get their energetic cords into you. But I think you can sense it and get a idea of that if you just listen to your gut feeling about them. Yeah, respect your personal space. This weekend I've had to listen to myself and what I felt comfortable with, and there's a situation that I didn't feel comfortable with, and I said no. Like, I drove half an hour to get there, and I kind of knew that I didn't want to be there, but when I got there I was like, no, I don't want to be here. I do not feel comfortable, and I left and I felt better. I mean, I still had to work through stuff that was triggered by that, but I just went home into my own space. And, you know, there's that sunk cost. Like, you spent that time and energy to go there. You got to drop that and be like, I got to take care of myself. And if I don't feel comfortable, I got to say no to it. One of the biggest themes in this whole topic is respecting and honoring yourself, your feelings, your intuition, your level of comfort, what you think. This is probably the most important. You can always change your ideas, your opinions, but this is just going to be so damaging if you don't fully honor yourself in all areas of your life. The pom-pom keeps appearing and disappearing. I just went skiing before this. I didn't get time to shower and change. But it was really beautiful. It was like the sunset, and the trees were just like covered in snow, and it was quiet. And there's a big race today, but everyone was pretty much done. So it was nice. And no, I haven't been keeping up with the walking. I think I only went like walking after work once this week. I just laid in bed a lot. That's okay. Yeah, so it's so interesting that in this process of psychic development, she was mentioning that you have to face childhood wounds and past life trauma to develop psychic abilities. Because you're connecting to those higher frequencies, to connect to those, you've got to clear all this other stuff out. You're embodying your higher self in physical form. Really cool, really amazing. But yeah, like we got to respect the process. Like, of course it's not going to be super easy, and you know, this is probably one of the things that really deters people from developing their psychic gifts, is that you start on the process and then it can bring all this stuff up for you to heal. Love the outfit. Thank you. Yeah, it's ski season. There's been not a ton of snow, but we just had some snow last night. So it looks quite nice. And hopefully there'll be more snow now. December's usually the pretty time of year. You got this trees covered in snow. Yeah, so this process of developing your psychic gifts, it like affects your entire being. And so it's really a natural extension of what we've been talking about. Like if you've been going through a spiritual awakening and you're doing a lot of spiritual growth, this can be an extension of that. It's not just about talking to aliens. It's really a lot more deep than that. You can only carry higher frequencies to the degree that you are healed. Yeah, so this is a really immersive process. And I think there's a lot of carryover. If you've been doing a lot of healing work already, this can come quite easily. Yeah, so Gigi Young talks about mystery schools and their initiation rituals. Probably, I think it was maybe ancient Egypt and probably Atlantis, where they had initiation rituals too. So I'm kind of guessing here because she mentioned mystery schools, she mentioned initiation rituals in the video. I don't know exactly what she was specifically referring to here. So if I'm not quite right, you can double check with the video, and you might have to watch more of our videos to get more background on that. But she was talking about initiation rituals where you have to face the emotions, physical sensations in your body. So, maybe someone would be brought into the mystery school or be part of this group where they have this initiation ritual where maybe a leader would recognize that this person's ready for spiritual growth and has that potential, and they do the initiation ritual as an external form to help with the internal part. So the internal part is what's happening here, but having this ritual externally helps bring a lot of validation to what's happening internally. And we're completely missing that in our culture and in our society. So this initiation ritual, you got to go through this healing process to level up in your spiritual gifts. And she was talking about going through cycles in every chakra without losing your focus. So there's the healing at the different levels of the chakras, and cycles, those are ups and downs. I've been going through a down this week, that's for sure, but you're going to be experiencing purging of them, different aspects of them at different times. Your soul is cycling through different densities. So whatever that means, I can't guarantee that I know, but maybe I have a bit of an idea. And the important part here is doing this without allowing ego to take over and get distracted. So this is exactly what happened for me this week. It was so brutal, just being consumed by stories and being upset and angry and frustrated and depressed. And then coming out of it, I talked about this in the video on Friday. You're allowed to feel depressed. So I'm kind of repeating myself here. But, so consumed by mind and ego. And I actually got out of it talking to some people through the meditation group that I'm a part of. Woke up the next morning, same thing, right? Back into the story, just so convinced of it, right? And then I talked myself out of it, and it kept going. Oh, it was so brutal. It just, the story seems so real when you're in it. It's it's intense, and the more intense it is, the more you just feel like you're taken over by the ego. Yeah, it's so brutal. So, you can be going along and I'm feeling pretty good, and then, one of these cycles comes up to clear something, and it's rough. And you're like, oh gosh, like maybe I'm not so advanced as I thought I was. But here's the thing is that, you know, this comes along when you're ready for it, when you're ready for that growth, when you're ready for leveling up in your spiritual abilities, in your spiritual gifts, your psychic abilities. I have some notes here on what I was working through this week. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see what it was. I think it was related to the root chakra. Yeah, looking for a sense of belonging, feeling like I didn't belong. Yeah, and requiring healing to feel safe and secure. Yeah, healing grief about not belonging. It was so painful. And of course, I blame my coworkers for all of it. Isn't that what coworkers are for? Oh, Ravina, how was your job? You gotta let us know. I thought about, like, last week you asked me about how to stay spiritual at work. And I thought about, like, that question this week, and I was like, well, I felt like I did not stay spiritual at work. This week. Yep. Yeah, it was a nice message that I got this week, like, and that helped calm me down, like, stop overthinking it. Like, I did not like that because I was stuck in the mind and ego, and I like, no, I want to think about it. I want to know what's happening. And like, it's just like, you're on the right track. You're facing the right way. You're where you need to be, and you don't need to rush things. Oh my gosh, where to begin? Oh boy. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if stuff came up because we're all connected. And yeah, I talked to a friend this week, and she was like, yeah, I'm going through the same thing that you are. I told her about my video on You're Allowed to Feel Depressed. She's like, yeah, like, I was in the same space this week, and it was just like so intense, and it's like, wasn't feeling that way last month. Yeah. And not even to the same degree last week, maybe a little bit last week, but the weeks before that. Yeah, what you are building is being built, and what you've planted will soon blossom. Yeah, this is part of surrendering to, yeah, like the building that you're, the building, if you want to talk metaphorically. But, you know, stuff is happening. That was from I think it's the Work Your Light Oracle. I feel like all the unhealed stuff from my previous workplaces came back to be healed and forgiven, but so easy to get sucked into it and just feel miserable. Well, I mean, I'm not glad that you're feeling that, but I can relate. Yeah, this week I thought, like, I gotta quit my job, I gotta move. And I might, but just not right this moment. Oh, yeah, I can see what you're saying there. That's a good summary. Oof. It's okay. You don't have to feel bad. You know, you're just leveling up. You're just growing. Some more stuff has to be healed, right? This is like an initiation ritual, but we're kind of in the dark about it. It's not like there's someone who's telling us, like, okay, now you're ready for your next level of spiritual growth. So here's the next growth period that you're going through. I feel Like, I'm always having a growth period. But thank God I got people like you that can relate and I can actually share things with. Yeah. You know, my friend said the same thing. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, like that's why you need community. And I'm really glad that I did start this channel to have a bit of that level of community, because like that validation helps so much. And it's rough. Oh, I'm gonna start crying, but it's rough out there. It's just like a snowstorm. Just shaking it up. Shaking up all the stuff that is stuck. It's just like shaking it up. And then, I don't know, like, it makes me think of, you have like those, when I make a smoothie, the protein powder, it sticks to the edges. And as I put extra water in once I drink the smoothie, and like I shake it to get the extra protein powder off the edges, but it doesn't come off that easily. So that's like the image that comes to mind, is like that really stuck stuff. You're just gonna like shake it out, like scrape it out. And it's like when you scrape it out, I usually use a clear jar, but imagine you have a jar that's not clear, and you shake it up, and you add some water to it, you shake it up, and okay, some more stuff comes out. And you do that a couple times. And then you take the spatula, and then you scrape it out, and you're like, oh, there's more stuff in there. And you don't see the stuff in there until it comes out. I have also noticed that sitting on the couch and healing versus going in the real world and facing challenging situations are two completely different things. They help and mutually support each other. I think it's so great to be able to like heal in the space and comfort of where you feel, where you can have more control over the energy. But yes, that's so true. Like not being affected by other people's energy, and like I'm so affected by what people talk about at work this week. I was upset. I was so upset. I'm just like, I don't want to hear about video games anymore. I also joined a bit late today because it's my birthday. Happy birthday, Ravina. Thank you for joining. Yay. That's awesome. Well, give yourself a treat, whatever that means to you, because you deserve it. Yeah. Give yourself permission for like a mental break, an emotional break, like something that feels really good. Oh, you know what? Like something that feels really good, but you have to allow yourself to do it, is like writing out every reason why you're amazing. And be aspirational about it. Just like you gotta shut off the negative, like the analyzer that's like, that's not true. like give that negative analyzer a voice. Like, that's not true. Okay, grumpy. And like make yourself a card or something that is beautiful, incredible things about yourself, and make it aspirational. So let's say, so you're going through like a growth period. I'm going through a growth period. We're feeling kind of rough. Okay. I did a video on the butterfly, on the chrysalis. And then the next one was like Christmas is coming, and I know like I released the Christmas video before Thanksgiving, which a little bit tacky, I know, but I felt that energy of Christmas when I made the video. I do not feel that energy of Christmas right now. So that's just how the timing works. But imagine that you're in the chrysalis right now and you're going to emerge a butterfly. Okay, so the butterfly you, everything that is the butterfly you, make a card for the butterfly you. And put it from the perspective of either you idolizing your future self, or you can imagine like a lover who's like obsessed with you in a good way. Or I don't know, maybe like a child who looks up to you and is like, you're so amazing. Or maybe if you like imagine a spirit guide who's just like, you're a complete cheerleader and says everything positive about you. Or if you have someone in your life that you know that you can imagine who would just like say incredible, beautiful things about you. Write it down. Or you can do a voice message too. Like that works too. Make yourself a card with it and put it somewhere and read it every day for the next week. Okay, so I'll start it off. We'll get some ideas flowing here. So, first of all, we have to say how incredibly beautiful you are, how magnetic, how attractive. Just like the gorgeous light that you are and that you share to the world, just like the light that you are illuminating all this darkness with. Just like how your inner being, it just shines so brightly that it's just unworldly. Yeah, like this is getting me kind of sidetracked because I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about like video games, I'm thinking about our phones, of all the distraction, people kind of plugged in, and it's like when you're plugged into that, you can't at the same time plug into this awareness of how beautiful and incredible you are and how beautiful and incredible others are. So if like that negative analyzer comes that sense, oh, you're not beautiful, it's like, yeah, okay, who are you speaking from? The paradigm of people who are plugged into, and I think some people call this like the matrix, right? This matrix of thoughts and paradigms and stuff that's just like kind of gross and icky, and like that's not who we are. No, we are like world changers, we're incredible, we're amazing. A lover that's obsessed with me sounds the best, lol. Okay, then choose that. Like, so this sort of thing, it requires discipline because it's like you're pampering yourself, and that requires discipline. Like, don't just pamper yourself physically, pamper yourself emotionally, pamper yourself like in terms of your thoughts, like what thoughts you get to think. Like, you gotta let go of like this Debbie Downer in your head. Like, yeah, you gotta have that discipline to do that, because like it's extra effort, but you deserve it. I'm wondering, like, if you're having trouble with inspiration, I'm wondering what you could use for inspiration to get yourself jump started. I'm just trying to think, where do we profusely compliment people? And I'm trying to think of a place. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we need to make this a thing, like profusely complimenting people. Another technique you can use to do this is imagine someone that you admire and then just write out everything that you like about them and then just write that to you. Thank you, Heather. You're the best. You're the best too. Okay. Back to the slides. So I realized like we're kind of at the end of the night here. So your birthday extends towards tomorrow too. You can still do the birthday vibes tomorrow. And you know, all this healing, it's extra hard because a lot of people just aren't doing it. Like, we're kind of in the soup of everyone's unhealed traumas, and we're swimming around in this soup, and it's not fun. This is something they talk around spiral dynamics, that, you know, if you're in a certain society that's at a higher level of development than you, they kind of pull you up. But if you want to travel beyond that or move beyond that level of development, it's really hard. You kind of like get this pulling down effect. Yeah, so if you're rising above this mass level of consciousness, then you are doing so much work. So much work. You're a superstar. That's another thing, like on the meditation group, someone just had a shower and their hair was like kind of messy. And I just said, like, you have like dressing room superstar vibes. So like, you know, in the dressing room before the show, it's like, yes, they're a superstar, but they're not on stage performing right now. Like, we're not always on stage performing in our lives, but we're all superstars. Okay, we're talking about a new video here. 5 common psychic development mistakes. Another video by Gigi Young. So some basic pointers here. Release expectations about how it unfolds, because this is a different skill set than most other things. And developing your consciousness, this is really developing your consciousness as a technology. And so we're so reliant on external technologies that, like, as a society, we've completely forgotten about the internal technology that we have access to. And that's why I used to teach piano, and I love learning piano because it helps develop focus. And this level of focus extends to lots of different areas of your life. And this requires focus. This kind of work requires a lot of focus. So I think if you're doing anything that requires you to increase your focus, and it's not just the intensity of your focus, but the duration of your focus, I think that helps with this. You can add that as a check mark to, you know what, I did a little bit today to work on this. So it's important to surrender and be playful. Make room for the unknown. And you have to heal. Be feeling unsafe. You got to develop that level of security within yourself. It does help to have a place where you are, but where you feel safe. That's for sure. This is a transformational process, and you're taking spirit into your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, kind of upgrading yourself at all levels, and you're merging with your spirit. And she said your worldview might change, and it can affect you being able to do your job if your job is not in alignment. So, yeah, this week I was there. I wanted to quit my job. At the same time, it's okay. I'm okay where I'm at. And I'm allowed to be where I'm at. And I don't have to change everything right away. And this can be a process. So having a job not being in alignment can be having a workplace where there are unethical practices happening, or you feel uncomfortable like with what's going on a moral or ethical level. So this can really hamper and affect you. And that's why the job that we do does matter. You have to feel comfortable with what's happening in your workplace. You have to be going by your own ethical and moral standards. So that's a plus for me with my job. I don't think we are scamming people or, violating anyone's free will. So I don't feel that that is an issue. This week it was more just being triggered. I would like to be around more people that I could connect with. But also I think that I do have control over what energy that I'm in. That I can go into a situation and be less affected by other people. I can focus on myself, basically, instead of focusing on other people and blaming them. Yeah, so don't expect your abilities to look like anyone else's, because society has a very limited perception of psychic abilities, and quiet abilities can be very powerful. And she was talking about how your gifts can take over your life, especially if you don't recognize them and set boundaries around them. You can feel dysfunctional or broken. For example, claircognizance, which is the thinking, and clairsentience, which is the feeling, are primary gifts to traverse time with. Clairvoyance and clairaudience, so clairvoyance is the seeing, clairaudience is the hearing, they're more recognized by society. They are limited in certain situations. So the clairvoyance and clairaudience, those are the solar clairs, so the more visible ones. And the claircognizance and clairsentience are the lunar clairs, so they're less visible and less obvious, but they can be very powerful as well, and they are hard to recognize that you have them, and they can kind of drain you if you don't recognize you have them and be able to set boundaries around them. Yeah, she said how she experienced feeling inferior and feeling disappointment, but she didn't let that stop her from developing powerful psychic abilities. And her primary one was claircognizance, and so she's worked to develop the clairvoyant part. Yeah, there can be a lot of shame and judgment in everything. Don't give up. Your intuition ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's very loud, some days it's very quiet. Sometimes you have to turn it down and exercise discipline. And sometimes what will happen is you will get less information when you're already dealing with a lot, so that you're not overwhelmed. So like this week, we're having a hard time. So there's going to be less of that available. When you're cleansing something or it's a really difficult time, it will be harder to access that intuition, but it can come back again when you're calm and you come back to center. So you can have a lot of it show up at once, but then have it kind of feel like, where is it now? And that's part of the ebb and flow. Don't get stuck in dogma. Trust your own connection to spirit. Don't hold too rigidly to someone else's structure. Just use it as a guideline. Your psychic gifts exist to help you. So hold lightly onto any beliefs and use your own intuition to verify ideas. Okay, so we're going to move into the notes on Jeffrey Allen's course on duality. So I've got just basic notes. You'll have to get the course yourself if you want the full deal. When I first took the course, I thought that this was the way that you do it. I didn't realize that what Gigi Young said here is that the way someone else does it it's not the only way. Like, this is something that's very abstract. It's not tangible. It's not physical. So, Jeffrey Allen has developed these techniques, and this is what he's used, and this is what he's found that works for other people. But this is a very nebulous area, so there's a lot of freedom for you to develop your own techniques, like the way he does the grounding cord. Like, having a grounding cord seems to be very commonplace, but the way you do it, there seems to be flexibility. For example, Regan Hillier has a course on Mind Valley as well. I forget what it's called, but she uses like this red grounding cord. And I don't remember whether Jeffrey Allen specifies the color. I think I imagined it as green. But there is the fact that they both use a grounding cord, like, that's similar. How they use it, it's different. So, there's different tools and techniques. Everyone has their own way, or they discovers their own way that they like to do it. So it's not just one way fits all. So we were talking about in the first live on this how you can develop your ability to focus, to visualize, to calm your mind. That is present, throughout all energy techniques. And as we went through that, I started to realize more that, okay, so there's this variability here. If something doesn't really work through it, you can tweak it, you can adapt it. Yeah, so this course is fairly grounded. It's used a lot for the practical aspect. And he talks about how we use healing to release pain, and also these energy techniques help us to perceive reality accurately and not really filtering everything through this paradigm of pain that is distorting beliefs. And a lot of people are expressing any pain and confusion inside externally. And I had to work so hard on this week to try and not do that. Because I know I can deal with a lot of this internally. I don't need to project this externally, although maybe I did a little bit. So this creates a negative feedback loop when you are expressing that pain on the inside onto others and onto situations. So it's important to develop awareness of the pain that exists within us. And just like we said earlier, as you start to see what's coming up as you're healing, sometimes it will feel worse at first. This week felt worse. That's okay. We're leveling up. We are doing what we need to be doing. So, coherence. I mentioned coherence earlier. Jeffrey Allen brought up coherence. So, for him, visually, non-coherence is like this energy that's moving in all different directions. Like, if you think about wool, if you card wool, carding wool, you've got the two brushes and you put the wool in between. The strands of wool, it's going on all different directions. You use the carding to get all the strands in the same direction. So that would be coherent. They're all in the same direction. And from that you can make the yarn, and then you can use that to make a sweater or a blanket. So you've got the non-coherent state and the coherent state. So you may be familiar with having a coherent state in terms of your brain or your brain waves. And that can be measured, right? Like the brain waves that you're emitting, there is like the theta, alpha, the beta waves. I think beta are quite energetic, and like the theta is that really deep, relaxed state. So coherency, so it's not just your brain that can be coherent, it's your entire energy. And I think that, you know, if you're arguing with yourself, I've had so many times, I think in the past couple months, where I've been arguing with myself, like, that's not coherent. You can tell right away. So coherency in your energy results in increased synchronicities. It also affects others when you heal yourself. So maybe we already know this, but here's another affirmation of that. When you heal yourself, that creates a positive feedback loop in yourself and the world. Yeah, so coming back to the grounding cord, why do we use a grounding cord? Well, lots of people are trying to escape their bodies, basically. You know, people can do that through astral projecting a lot. They're not fully integrated in their body. Oh, looking back, when I was diagnosed with clinical depression, I went to the clinic and we were doing mindfulness exercises, and I couldn't do it. It was so painful because being in my body, I experienced so much intense physical pain. Like, I could not do it. I'm like, I'll go running, I'll do some exercise. This was actually had quite a bit of healing at this point, because initially I couldn't do anything. But when I got better, you might be familiar with how depression just like knocks you off your feet. But when I was feeling better and I could actually do stuff, that's when I did those exercises, and it was not great. I was not ready for it because, feeling that pain, it was just too intense. So I think I'm quite a bit better now. Like, I feel pain in my body, but I'm a lot more present in my body. Of course, it's easier when there's less pain. So you really got to be in the body to do this work. You can't just be in the mind or kind of like disembodied. And this is personally the first advice that Jeffrey got, that he needed to get in his body. Or that this was one of the first classes that he took in his training. So when I say validating both physical and spiritual worlds, you got to have your foot in both, and you're bridging the gap. That's why this work is so hard. We're getting quite long here, but I wanted to add the idea of Nephilim. If you know, Nephilim are a reference from the Old Testament. Is it Judges? I forget. Nephilim are half human, half angel, and they were so powerful that they were an abomination. But the interesting thing is that they had power both physically and spiritually. They had influence over the physical and the spiritual world, and I think that's why they were so powerful. And I think this has meaning in a metaphorical sense, that by bridging the gap between the physical and the spiritual, that is where you have tremendous power. I hope that makes sense. So you need to integrate your spirit within your body, which is why we do grounding exercises. So you can be living in your body, but he described it as pouring more spirit into your body and becoming more alive. And you become more and more alive the more spirit you pour into your body, to the point where you're radiating like God consciousness. This is being present and involves identifying as your consciousness more than as your body. Your body is a vehicle for your spirit. And I think Jeffrey says this in his free masterclass. Okay, so for the grounding exercise, it was bringing awareness. You can like look at a point at the other side of the room, and then you bring it awareness behind your eyes. I think you can like just close your eyes, be relaxed. He does some like relaxation techniques, and then imagining like the grounding cord from your root chakra down into the center of the earth. He does a guided journey to the center of the earth where you expand like that grounding cord to the width of your, I forget if it's your body or your aura, and then you go into a glass elevator and you go down into the center of the earth, and I think you go into a cave. So that's like inner earth, if you've seen anything about that. And of course, people who know about inner earth, they're connecting to their psychic abilities to get that information. So he was saying, it's so interesting, you know, like when different people talk about different things and you kind of connect it together. He didn't go into this in depth. Of course, you know, inner earth, that's something that Gigi Young references in her videos. So within the inner earth, in this cave, you can feel like the pulsing energy of the earth, and you ask for like a healing in there. He also has the cosmic energy, which comes down and is circulated, I think it's down the back, meets at the root chakra, and then goes back up the front, and then showers out your head, and I think it showers out your arms too. So it's a visualization technique, but remember how earlier, not today, but the previous lives, we were talking about developing the inner eye. That third eye chakra, the pineal gland, how visualization that helps activate that. And as we practice that focus on those visualizations, we're able to release, come into that state of focus, and then release control over it, and then receive visions or information. So it's like, is this grounding cord an actual thing? Well, we're connecting to energy using visualization as a tool for that, and then also developing the abilities to develop that focus. Yeah, so like the first part of this course, it's a lot of focus on being grounded. You can tell you're not grounded when you're experiencing fear, anxiety, distraction. So being grounded helps you feel engaged, focused, safe, relaxed, more effective, able to react better to situations, and more able to sense energy, able to exert more influence and have a powerful presence. This is also flow state. Yeah, so connecting to your intuition, we're about finding answers. So this is very difficult in energetically than it is like what we're used to in like finding something in the physical world, where we might need to search for it, apply active effort. Otherwise, finding answers requires listening, trust, and patience. Because energetically, we are connected to all energy. And part of the blocks of connecting to intuition is overthinking, noticing unimportant details and patterns. Yeah, I had conversation with a coworker this week about how they were noticing things. And I was like, okay, you're going to notice those details, but then like be emotionally disengaged. This just made me think of that when I was making these slides. And of course, you can't blame others, but I've been emotionally disengaged too from others because I've been stuck in this thinking pattern. So can't change others, but I can bring the energy that I want to bring into situations. Yeah, so more blocks connecting to intuition. So indicators that you're overthinking, wanting to do it the right way, being in the future, making up hypothetical stories, having an overactive mind, being critical and judgmental, being a poor listener. You really need to be able to relax the mind to sense energy. Creativity goes up as thinking goes down. So this overactive kind of thinking. Oh, so he mentions a lot how he uses sometimes like a TV screen in front of you where you can like imagine. So he was like checking on the energy of the class by using his own TV screen. So this is a energetic tool, and it's, for me, when I think about that, that's like manipulating the energy to condense it into a way that is easy for him to interpret. And it's not like this is the way you do it. I think this is a tool that either he or someone else came up with to use and try as a way to interpret energy. So he would use the TV screen, and he would have some exercises with the TV screen. Like there are exercises about feeling into different areas of your body, bringing your awareness from like behind your eyes to like further back, like in the middle of the head, or even further back and up into the higher mind. Also using light switches. So like having like a switchboard or a light switch or a dimmable light switch where you turn down the volume on your thoughts. So using visualization in that way. Turning down your analyzer, that's what he called it. And like the difference between physical perceptions is like they feel real. Otherwise, energetic perception, it feels like a dream. So taking into consideration everything that we've talked about today, you can see how, energy is really nebulous, and energetic information, it has this potential of like this dough where it's like, well, what are we going to make out of this dough? We've got the raw information, but then it's like, we got to translate that into something. So that's what I noticed, is that he is using these tools to translate this information. And he's really focused on developing the basics. So I didn't get into all of it. I think I wanted to mention some more on the other aspects of it, of the course, but I might also include some other sources for next week. So I think next week will be the last week on this topic. There we go. I feel like I didn't run too far over time. Oh. So it's very likely that you're probably connecting into your own intuition in subtle ways or obvious ways in your life. So it helps to recognize that and see where that's happening. And notice, what avenues are you getting messages? Are you getting your intuitions showing up? Trying to think if there's anything left to say. I'll just keep it open for a few more minutes if anyone has any comments or questions. Oh yeah, Ravina, with the birthday exercise, the self-love exercise. I like scrapbooking. I have a whole box of I have a couple boxes of scrapbooking materials. So this is something that I have done for myself. Just sit there with my scrapbooking stuff and make a card. Definitely needed this live session today. I'm glad I joined. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I'm glad I showed up too. Yeah, I know. I was feeling rough, and I was a little bit like, I don't know. Maybe I'll cancel. But I was like, you know what? You can just do it. It's fine. You're fine. You have everything that you need to get done, what you need to get done. And it's all working out. I definitely feel inspired to keep working on this. Okay. Yeah, I got a few ideas from the session today, so I'm gonna journal about it when I'm done here, and I think I'll just include the link to Jeffrey Allen's course on Mind Valley. If I can find the link, I don't know. It's definitely on mindvalley.com. I'll put that if I can't find a direct link to that course. Also, I mentioned Erica Elmet's video, so I'll put a link there in the description. And the other 2 videos should be in the description already. Okay, you got this. We'll heal together. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Bye. Have a great weekend, or what's left of your weekend.